Curtis Ellis has come by. He's just put my hat on his bald little head. It's good to see you, Curtis.
It's great to be here, John. Yes.
And let's see, Jeremy from Chesapeake says, why are we not securing our schools? I don't know, but that's a separate issue, right? Go ahead and secure the schools, put police in school. You got to pay for it through an increase of property tax. I would certainly pay that. But I think the president has called for three things in the gun debate. Evaluate not selling semi-automatic rifles until you're 20 to somebody under 21. Extending and strengthening the background checks. That's a tough one to tell me you don't agree with. And number three, he wants to look at the prospect of not being able to go to a gun show and buy a gun as an 18-year-old, buy a revolver from a private citizen that has them there at the show. That's all. I mean, I think all of these are worthy of a discussion instead of jumping down a rabbit hole.
When they talk about strengthening the background checks, you have to understand this in the context that there has been a breakdown in so many of the government services or government, I wouldn't say services, government safeguards, right? Mm-hmm. The mental health thing broke down. This kid was reported several times, 39 times, either social services or the police visited this guy's house. The school, he was never expelled from school, but everybody who knew him said he's a whack job. So every time the government has intervened or contacted or come in contact with this kid, they failed. Mm-hmm. They failed. Mm-hmm. And the background check is another example of that. Right. How many times have we heard, oh, well, actually they forgot to enter the data into the background check system. Right. It's like, how about we fix the government, right? Before we start passing laws to tell us where the government, which has failed numerous times, is now going to have another task to fail at, how about we fix the government systems that have failed us? Mm-hmm. That's what the president's talking about. Mm-hmm. That's all he's talking about.
Well, no.
That's not all he's talking about, but
he says he's open to extending the age limit for buying firearms.
Right. Well, now we know science tells us, everybody, I'm not a science denier, right? We're all accused of denying science because we dare question a hypothesis about climate science. But science tells us that teenage brains are not fully formed. If you ever watched East of Eden and you saw James Dean and Sal Mineo do that chicken drag race off the edge of the cliff, we know that teenagers do crazy things.
That was Rebel Without a Cause.
Rebel Without a Cause, thank you. I know it was one of those James Dean movies.
Great movie, by the way.
Great movie. But we know that teenagers do crazy things.
Jim Backus played his father.
Oh, my God.
How do I remember this
Thurston Howell III.
Yes.
Where's Lovey? Was she in the movie, too?
Lovey was in the movie. Rebel Without a Cause. Great movie, James Dean.
But that shows us that teenagers do kooky things.
Right.
That's because their frontal lobes have not fully developed, right? And this is a matter of science. It's not that, they didn't go to school enough. No, it's a physiological thing. So the president's saying, okay, well, let's look at maybe these underdeveloped teenagers should not be accessing high-power weapons. Okay, something to talk about.
No, we have to call them semi-automatic rifles.
Semi-automatic
rifles. All my NRA friends are chiding me.
Don't call them
assault weapons.
Right.
They're not weapons of war. They're semi-automatic rifles.
Okay.
By the way, he's also in favor of getting rid of the bump stock, which is if you put a bump stock on a semi-automatic rifle, it turns into a machine gun, which are also banned.
Right. Bad.
So
now, by the way,
let me ask you this.
Yes.
Why can't an 18-year-old buy a Glock?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. We passed some law that said an 18-year-old can't buy a Glock, can't buy a handgun, can't buy a revolver.
Really? We passed that law?
Yeah. If you're 18,
Virginia?
you cannot.
Anywhere.
Federally, you cannot buy a revolver.
Right.
But you can buy a semi-automatic rifle. That to me is illogical.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's one thing to buy a hunting rifle. I mean, that's okay. A lot of teenagers hunt. That's a rite of passage, and it makes perfect sense to me. I don't think you need a semi-automatic rifle to hunt, but I'm not a hunter, so I can't judge that. I'm not going to weigh in on that.
And
I'm not going to get into that swamp. I'm not going to go down that path.
Here's what happens. Then somebody texts and says, well, then 18-year-olds should be able to buy a pressure cooker. So that argument...
Yeah. I don't want to go there. But here's,
I don't want to go
But
there.
here's something, an interesting contradiction here, and I'm not casting any aspersions on young people. I think it's great that they're all active and involved. I noticed that everybody, that when they were doing the protest down in Virginia, you saw on TV the guys, the sort of the hall monitors herding these kids around, they were all wearing T-shirts that said the Brady campaign. They were all adults wearing Brady campaign, which is like the big gun control outfit. So much for the spontaneous demonstrations. But I don't want to go there either. But if, on the one hand, you say teenagers are not responsible enough to have weapons because, as we know, physiologically they're not fully developed yet, or whatever, their brains and their reasoning capacity is not that of adults. On the other hand, we're supposed to listen to whatever the kids say. When they go into, we have to have reform, we have to have this, we have to have that, we're supposed to just listen to everything the kids say. You can't have both things at the same time. If you're going to say kids are not responsible enough to buy guns and own guns, you can't say at the same time that adults should just shut off their reasoning ability and just adopt whatever the kids say. I don't think the kids are saying that, though. The kids are saying, we're the ones in the schools at risk, and we want the schools secured. Perfectly reasonable, perfectly logical, and I'm 110% on board with that. But you get some of the activists, the adult activists, who are trying to play on the emotions and say, well, we have to listen to whatever the kids say. Then they, try to exploit that.
There's going to be hysteria and rhetoric on both sides.
Right.
The chairman of supervisors in Broward County, Florida, this week has commissioned deputies from the sheriff's office to be armed in every school. I think that's a sober response and a step in the right direction because, right up the street, 17 kids just got gunned down, 24 wounded. And so you're afraid of the copycats out there in the same area.
That's right.
And so I think that is a smart thing to do. And I think we should look at security in schools. Curtis, I told this story sometime earlier this week. Curtis, you're Jewish. You're going to appreciate this. I was in Atlanta, and this was during all the terrorist bombings and the turmoil. And I went and visited a Jewish school in Atlanta, like an Orthodox school. And, I was recruiting somebody for basketball. That's why I was there.
Yeah.
So I go, and there was a good player, and I needed a guard or whatever. But anyway, to get in the school, right, like I had to go through a metal detector.
Right.
I had to go through security. I had to give my ID.
Right.
There were 2 armed guards right there that took my ID.
Right.
I got a pat down. Armed guards.
Armed guards. Yeah.
Big guys with guns.
Well, one was Mossad, the other was Shin Bet.
Oh, yeah, big guys. Big guys with big guns.
Israeli Defense Force.
Israeli Defense Force. And whatever they were, and this was a Jewish school because, look, they were at risk for kidnapping.
Right.
And I had to go through a metal, and I was patted down, took ID at the check-in, and then to go meet the kid, I got an escort.
You got an escort,
escorted
me. Make sure you went to
Damn
where
right.
you...
Where exactly. Met him in the library, met him in the cafeteria.
It makes sense. Look, if you're worried about school safety, do school safety. That's what you didn't have. And guess what? The Jewish school did that. They didn't need Congress to pass a law to do that, right? So if people are out there, Congress needs to act. Congress needs to act.
They upped everybody's tuition by $8 a month.
Right.
And they paid for that level of security.
Well, you said it, John. Are people willing to increase their property tax or their school tax, the school levy, to pay for school security?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Are or you're
that
not.
Is the question.
And if you're not, shut up and get out of my face.
Exactly. If not, you have another agenda, and please label it. I have nothing against poison as long as it's clearly labeled.
Sure.
If what you're talking about is gun control, call it gun control. If what you're talking about is taking away people's guns or taking away their Second Amendment rights, just say so.
Right.
Don't try to smuggle it in under listen to the kids or school safety. School safety, the Jewish school did it, and they didn't need Congress to act.
That's right.
And you can do it too. You can do this at home.
You can do this too.
You can do this too.
You can do this too.
Right.
I mean, and that's why I would like to see meetings at school boards and say we want security at our school. Just like, hey, we're at CPAC today. Everybody got a pat down, right? Because the
I had to pay
president,
extra for the pat down.
We couldn't get in here till 5:30 because of the sweep. The vice president is coming. It's highly secure. We just saw 4 cops go by us.
The exhibit
There's
hall
Secret
is closed.
Service all over the place. They closed the exhibit hall. There's all kinds of things going on because you have security. So you go to your school board and say, I want security in my school district, and that's going to cost X, and that's going to increase your property tax by Y. And so you pay it.
Yeah.
And then don't be telling me, well, I don't have kids in school, because that doesn't matter. You pay for the schools. Anyway, we're out of time. Live at CPAC today with Curtis Ellis. He is the Senior Advisor of America First Policies. Curtis, good to see you live.
Good to see you.
We will see each other again very shortly.
You betcha.